Mr. Smith, can you tell us what happened?
Yes, I was having a conversation with Shiloh a day and a half ago with respects to some post or some link about her personal information being released.
And do you remember the time and date of this?
Yes, this was Monday, and the conversation started about 6:53 p.m. And we wanted to figure out how her name came out, and then also her name Shiloh Riders, which she's using, and but her real name is Molly Dunn Powell, and that came out on an article. And then as soon as that came out in the article, within a couple hours, there was gunfire at her location. The sheriff from Tampa came out there and took the report and started investigating. And as we know now, she's in an undisclosed area off Facebook.
When you were actually on the phone with her, the gunshots were fired?
Actually, at that time, we were talking on private message on Facebook, which I'll be more than happy to forward to you, our conversations. And then within that conversation, she's like, "My house is getting shot at," and then I said, "Okay." And well, obviously, she went down to the ground because nobody knows. Bullets are just don't have any direction. I mean, they just go wherever the shooter does, or wherever the shooter shot somebody. So that's how everything transpired.
Wow.
It's
Vicky,
nerve wracking when you think about it, because here you are trying to figure out who posted information, your personal information on an article, and we already know more or less who. But then the other thing is, what was their motive behind it? What are they expected to happen?
Do you know what have you read the post where her information was released? What website is it?
Yes. Actually, I forwarded to Lady Goddess, which we ended up giving it to Professor is it Doom or Mike, or well, we went on air that day. Uh, so yes, I have the information. I'll forward it to you. I'll be more than happy to forward it to you, so you guys can put it there. And
Okay.
uh, and actually, right now, what I'm doing is I'm taking screenshots so you guys can through private message can see what the whole entire conversation we were having.
okay.
And I'll also forward that to you guys. The thing is, at the end of the day, is we want the truth. Everybody needs to know the truth. It doesn't matter, regardless of race, religion, gender, uh, political party or affiliation. The truth has to come out. I mean, we're being screwed no matter what, on all directions. And this is
W-
and this is what the American people need to know. We cannot be divided, because at the end of the day, the Koch, like individuals like the Koch brothers, and individuals like George Soros, Kate Brown, Stephen E. Grassi, uh, what do you call it? Cliff Bentz, Ted Ferrioli, Jeff Merkley, Harry Reid, Hillary Clinton, Barack Hussein. They're all profiting off the stealing of our land. And what they just basically did is just lit fire, because if they want to try to shut Shiloh down, there's going to be another 1,000 Shilohs going to be coming out, following the story now, exposing the truth, and actually start digging into the facts. And it's a sad situation, but at the end of the day, it's probably the only way to wake up the American people.
Yeah, I I recall reading that article, and my impression was that Molly was working with the Koch brothers. Is that wrong? Did I get that wrong?
I That's a good question for Molly. I cannot answer that question. I haven't even read the entire article. I just saw her name with her alias name, Shiloh, and that's as much as I needed to know. And then and looked at the name on the article, and that's where I just stopped. I said, okay, this is legitimate,
Uh huh.
which, which is Shelly or Shirley's name on it. So I just stopped there, and I'm like, okay. When we were in the process of trying to find the information of who was releasing her personal information, but I didn't go any further than that. I didn't start digging into if the Koch brothers actually hired her or not. I didn't get into my thing was more her. How did her personal information come out of Facebook? But if it did, then I'm kind of really disappointed. But you know, uh, at the end of the day, I didn't even know. Till yesterday. Till yesterday, I could say for a fact that I didn't know the Koch brothers were behind it, and I realized they're also behind it, playing the devil's advocate, funding both parties, Republican and Democratic Party. And how do I know? It's because I went through their financial records or donation contributions, and they're playing both sides. So it's a good possibility that you know what that they'll play both sides and utilize whatever methods and means necessary to have us divided.
Yeah, all these billionaires do that. They our politicians, from the top to the bottom, are corrupt. They've been bought. Um, well, not 100%. There's probably maybe 10% that haven't been bought. But the Koch brothers have an agenda, and the agenda is they call it liberty and freedom, but it's liberty and freedom for them, not for you. And people need to understand that so that they're not used. They don't allow themselves to be used to promote ideas that ultimately end up hurting themselves and their families and their communities. Because these billionaires, these rich guys, they have absolutely nothing in common with us except our physical forms. They have blood running through their veins, but their life experience, everything that they know, and the thing, while they might use the same words we do, their agendas are not a benefit to us. They are a benefit to them, and it hurts us. So
Right, and the left and right, there is no left and right. They're all on the same team. They're being funded by the same people. So, we got to get the Republican Democrat thing out because I personally don't enjoy being cornered into one section of being a Republican or being a Democrat. I'm me. And I have beliefs that are all over the map, and I think each and every one of us does. And when we get locked into that left right parallelogram, that's how they control us. You know?
right, that's exactly right. I did a little chart one time that showed the major themes of the political parties, and they have the major themes divided up in such a way that you can't um, support a single political party if you have a belief that families are important, um, jobs are important, moral values are important, because the political parties, the Republicans promote one piece of it, the Democrats promote the other piece of it, but you've got to take the negative, which is for the Republicans, it's support for these major corporations, tax breaks for them, and all the benefits for corporations. And on the Democrat side, all the degradation of humanity, the LGBT agenda, the gay marriage, the list goes on of things in the Democratic Party that they support that are not conducive to what you would think is standard normal family values. So that's just for the record. So I was a Republican for all my life up until about the year 2000, and I quit calling myself a Republican because I was so disgusted with what they were doing.
Right. So,
I tr- and I tried the Democrat Party, and I'm equally disgusted with them. So
right. So, this shooting thing, it scared the living daylights out of her, and you guys truly believe that it's connected to this article. What in this article makes you believe that she was shot at because of this article, and who wrote this article?
Well, no, number one is she never had any prior incidents till the article was released. So it's kind of a coincidence. Well, that depends on who you ask, and they can define coincidence.
Right.
But after the article was released, there was gunshots fired at her location. So I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to put two and two together. But if you really want to dissect and find motive, well, I mean, you can find where the motive's at, because I mean, on April 18th of 2016, Sherry puts out information with regards to Shiloh, and
Sherry
then
who? Who is this Sherry?
Sherry's the one that basically interviewed Mike McConnell
Oh,
about a week, I think a week ago or so, I believe.
yeah,
I
that's
can't be accurate on that.
challenging the rhetoric. Her little I like to call it channeling the Oregonian rhetoric. So her and Sherry, what's her last name that wrote this article?
I do not have her last name.
Okay. And that article gave Shiloh's address. Is that what it did? It gave her
Correct.
personal information.
Correct. It gave personal information from, because the information that I was getting from Shiloh was asking me on a Facebook thread, which I already forwarded to you. Uh, her releasing her personal information, her address, and during that whole process is when obviously her house was shot at.
Well, I'm going with you because 2 hours after her personal information, her house being shot at. Yes, yes, I think I'm in your camp with that. That's pretty obvious.
You know
I can't
what?
say that she's the one. I can't say that she's the one that pulled the trigger. I can't say that she's the one that actually had a monetary gain or had an agenda. But I mean, at the end of the day, when you release somebody's personal information, and especially in a hot topic like this, I mean, what do you expect to happen? So it's like somebody by accident releasing your personal information, and let's say, well, you know what? Somebody decides to return the favor, and it can go both ways. I mean, all you did is basically stir up a hornet's nest, and some people like to retaliate, some people don't. Some people just wait for their time, and you open a can of worms you didn't want to open. That's how sadly it comes to that, because it's no different than a mob. I mean, you go over there and you mess with the mob. What do you expect is going to happen?
Well, here I'm going to mess with them even more. I just looked up. I looked at the link that you gave me, and it shows Molly Powell being connected with Americans for Prosperity. That's where the Koch brothers connection comes in. And so I did a search on that, and I'm just kind of scanning through here, and I remembered a story I wrote a few days ago uh, about one of our legislators here in Idaho secretly tape recording a conversation that he had with the GOP chairman of the state, Stephen Yates. And the subject of that conversation had to do with something called the Prosperity Project.
Now, what is
And
that? Because Vicky, I have to interrupt here and say I'm a member of Americans for Prosperity. I did not know that Koch brothers were involved in that, or I would have never joined.
uh-huh. Well, that's what I mean when I say that they use all the right words to appeal to you as a liberty-minded person. But the liberty they're going for is for the billionaires, for the corporations. They want freedom for the corporations to be able to do whatever they damn well please, exploit our resources in whatever way they choose. A billionaire's freedom is your slavery, and there's no way around that. Um,
So, what was this conversation? I'm sorry for interrupting. I'm just kind of floored here. I'm in that group, and you know,
yes.
I'm feeding the beast unwittingly, and I don't like that.
Yeah, yeah, I know. That's why we research, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
why we dig for what's behind everything. Um, it had to do. Apparently, it is a project to unseat the current leadership, Republican leadership in the state, but only some of them. And I mean, that's the kind of thing that the Koch brothers do. And they don't care whether they fund Democrats or Republicans. They fund anybody that'll go along with their agenda. And so that's what it's about. Apparently, Doyle, I think his name is Doyle Beck, is a target, uh, to be unseated. And he was concerned about that, and he was seeking assistance from the state GOP chairman. But the state GOP chairman, he uh, didn't really want to have anything to do about it. But as I researched it, apparently the Americans for Prosperity Project, uh, they didn't say Americans for Prosperity, they said Prosperity Project, was brought to him by a woman named Anne Raldich or something like that. I have it in my article. I'll find it in just a second. But anyway, so I did a search on her, and she is involved in a committee to turn a technical school in Idaho Falls into a community college, which sounds innocuous, except that if, as you study the structure of the New World Order, the replacement of our on the ground governments with regional governing structures, what you find out is that the center of power in a community for that, the fascist organization is seated in the community colleges. And here in Idaho Falls, at the College of Southern Idaho, they are basically establishing what I consider to be a shadow government, involved in various functions that should be, if we do these things, they should be government functions, but they're not. They've been privatized. And one of the things that these people do is refugee resettlement.
Oh, bingo. Wouldn't you know it?
Yes. Okay. And so the woman that was doing that here, who brought in a company called Shobani, that is a yogurt company. He and the guy, the CEO, is a Turkish Kurd. It's this woman named Jan Rogers who brought that company in here. She is connected to an international economic development association, and they are the ones that are bringing in these foreign businesses into the same locations where they're resettling a lot of refugees. And not coincidentally, all these, quote, refugees and males that they're bringing in to work at these businesses are military age young men.
Of course they are.
Uh-huh. And so the woman that was doing that, her name is Jan Rogers. She just recently left Twin Falls and went over to Idaho Falls. So I think that's of the establishment of this same kind of thing. They'll probably be doing a lot more refugee resettlement in Idaho Falls
Yeah.
as a result of it.
Well, that's part of Agenda 21. We all know anything that they use, environment, restructuring, strategy, any kind of those words they use down the line, growth economics, It's all part of the New World Order. George Soros, the Koch brothers are all behind it, and as you stated, articulated just right now. I mean, how blatantly, I mean, obvious can it be that what they're trying to do is uh, destroy our constitutional republic and bring this more into a corporation, which we already are under the shadow government,
Right.
but communist socialist country, and we're starting to become as just probably as bad as Russia and China and North Korea and all these countries that we fight for freedom, that we send our military, and yet here we are being institutionalized by these billionaires and the American Bar Association and their puppet law members. I mean, this is how it's going down. It's a lobbyist. We have to look at the lobbyist. Once you understand and dissect the purpose of the lobbyist, you're gonna look at a couple things. You want to look at if they're part of the American Bar Association, and then who they represent,
Well,
and which politics they bought.
yeah, it goes a lot um, more differently than that, actually, and it's really that's what I've been doing is studying the organizational structure of all of
Oh my gosh, John. She has the structure down of how they do it and how the shadow government is, and we're trying to right now figure out a way to get that out to the public because it's so complicated, and she's been studying this for so long, um, and she's figured it out, and I don't know a lot about secret societies, but just the little things that I do know, I can match up dates. Oh, I can match up dates to what's going on. And it's with the secret societies with her thing, and it's just incredible if we could get a timeline or get someone in with the secret societies. But to get back to the point, have you talked to this girl, Molly or Shiloh, since this has happened?
Yeah, my last conversation was yesterday late night, and then she told me that she was off Facebook for a while, and gonna go reach I guess recharge her compass.
Is there an
Uh,
investigation right now into this by the local officials?
from our conversation, yes, there is, but she left obviously her premises, so I believe that the only ones that do have access to that it's the sheriff department there or any other official. I'm assuming. I mean, obviously, when an investigation happens or is being conducted, different departments or different agencies come in and help out with the investigation. So I guess the only thing we can do is wait and see what happens. Obviously, to ballistics, they'll probably find out what type of caliber was used.
Did they
And
find the bullet?
we didn't at that time when after the shots were fired, she went down the floor. Like I said earlier, she called the 911, and then she started what do you call it? Like went down her neighbors. Obviously, her neighbors came over and knocked on the door, and then the cops were there already, and
So it was
she
more
go
than
take
one.
pic.
It was more than one shot fired. How many shots were fired? Do you know?
She no, she just said what do you call it? My house is being shot at, and that's as much as I know.
Oh
I
my.
can't say how many bullets accurately. So and I can't accurately state where the house was hit, but that the sheriffs were there. What do you call it? Neighbors did come out, and there is an investigation going on right now.
Well, I'm confident in saying, and I'm just going to put it out there, that Vicky Davis's studies are tied into this. I really, really believe it. Don't you, Vicky?
Yes, I do actually. I found the thing that I wrote. I called it "The Secrets of the Secret Society in Idaho," and the reason I called it that was because Doyle Beck called it a secret society, and so I just keyed off of what he said. But I don't think it's a secret society per se, like we think of, Freemasons or whatever. It might ultimately track back to the Masons, but the what I've observed and documented is going on with refugee resettlement in Idaho, and understanding the whole big picture of how our on the land constitutional government is being replaced by regional government. Um, I found the Tammany Society in New York, and the bringing in of refugees follows the same pattern as the Tammany Hall political system that was set up at the. What happened in New York is that they established a corrupt political machine, and it involved bringing in immigrants, helping them get jobs, basically buying the loyalty and the votes of foreigners just as they put their foot on the ground in the country. And so their loyalties are to that organization, and it buys political power for the people that are. So that's the model that I was talking about as the secret society. So it fits the pattern. I mean, and that's
Right.
what I look at is patterns.
And you know the funny thing that we're talking about the secret society. We know that within the Hammonds, uh, there's a cave where the secret society. It appears that they do a lot of practicing or whatever rituals or sacrifice they do out there.
You mean
But
on
the
the
most
Mahler Wildlife Refuge?
correct,
Okay.
and there's caves going down there. But the most interesting thing is if we know that Stephen E. Grassie's involved. Uh, But we also know, or we believe that the former commissioner, or I don't know if he's former current commissioner, but Cliff Bentz. And if you look at Cliff Bentz's family, they're huge in the sense of land, them making money off us, the government, because we give through our taxation, the money's being distributed through stewardship to the families. So if you look into the Benz family, you'll see how they're all interconnected, and it's a huge spider web, like you're stating, Stacy. And people need to understand that these people, these huge families, are depriving us from our minerals and enslaving us. And we need to get together. It doesn't matter, it doesn't matter, like I stated earlier, about your race, gender, or sex, or your religion, or your political affiliation with whoever. These people are systematically orchestrating an infiltration of our country and restructuring it,
Exactly.
and they're using any means necessary. I mean, this is right now, as we see, a prime example, and I think right now the way Stacy hit the nail on the head, that these are the individuals we have to come and get them and hold them to their feet on a file under common law grand jury, because it's the only way we can get the truth out. We have to prosecute these individuals for their criminality. So,
Right. And how do we do that when they totally ignore that system? If it, I mean, in the court, I don't even remember what court it was, but it was a court there, I believe, in Oregon that said I won't allow anything in here that's not by the bar association. Well,
right, that's Anna J. Brown, but the fourth branch of government is, like Scalia stated back in 1994, which is a Supreme Court ruling, that we are the last defense, and we the people can actually create our own legitimate common law grand jury, and actually we can actually even go ahead and indict Anna J. Brown and drag her ass into a common law grand jury. Now, why it hasn't been done to this day, I do not know.
it's
I think
because
because we're
you've got a governor that wasn't voted in, you've got a sheriff that wasn't voted in. They are the two most powerful people in the county, or you know. So when you have that, and then you have a crooked judges on top of it, I mean, and these people were not elected. And then you've got the Oregonian indoctrinating people. And then you've got the Oregonian lackeys on social media doing the same. And then giving these, the information, private information of people out. It's outrageous. It is outrageous.
Yeah.
It's funny that you
Well,
said that, because I pointed that out yesterday through the campaign contributions. Like they'll use prime example Burns Herald, but the most they use is the Angus News, if I'm pronouncing that right. Mall here Enterprise, which is also with Les Zates and Scalia Callister,
Scotta, yeah, Scotta.
Scotta Callister,
Mhm.
and the Blue Mountain, where they also use Scotta Callister. So, do we honestly expect anybody to go after Ted Ferrioli, Cliff Bentz, uh, Jeff Berkeley? Do we honestly think they're going to report anything bad when they're pumping thousands of dollars into their corporation for advertisements?
Right.
I don't. I mean, you don't. You know, I guess there's a saying, you don't eat where you shit. So I mean,
Right.
I would like to see, give me a negative article on any of those two that they pumping in so much money for their campaign, and that's where the money goes to. But through that campaign, it's amazing what you find through their campaign contributions and the connections that they go through with corporations, and it all comes back to the same people. All they're doing is hiding through corporations. But you know what? They'll call it a pack. I mean, they'll call it a solution, Brent Solution LLC. The-
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
that's the important thing is doesn't matter what they call it. I always look at the function. If you look at the function of it and what they're doing, then you know they can call it anything they want, but then you'll know precisely what it is. And yeah, this is hugely important. When we got on this phone call, I thought it was just going to be a little bit of Facebook gossip, but I think we just opened a huge can of worms here.
Right. And see now, Vicky, that I think that opens the door that we're going to have to sit down and have a long talk. And because the structure that you have figured out is amazing. The connections is amazing. And it's so complicated and so tangled, but you have studied it for so long and you've done so many articles on it. Um, we were talking last night about this treasure that Vicky owns. Vicky, you want to tell a little bit about the treasure? And
Yeah, I bought this book. It's called The Merchants of Peace, and it was published by the Carnegie Foundation, and it's about the founding of the International Chamber of Commerce and their relationship to the Carnegie Foundations. And in adding that to all the rest of the things that I've studied, I would say that the I have no problem of the conspiracy in the United States is the Carnegie are the Carnegie Foundations, because there is more than one. But in particular, the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching, because they have been in control of the profession of teaching and universities since 1905 when they were founded. And it was that foundation was established in the model of the British Livery Company. And the British Livery Company dates back to the Roman Empire. And I would say that it is the most effective and powerful weapon of cartelizing, creating a cartel that the world has ever seen.
absolutely. And then when you and their first step in 1905 through the Carnegie Foundation was to indoctrinate and totally radicalize, if you will, our educational process. To
Yeah, well, they set the standards. See, the way that the livery company works, it is a uh, supposedly a beneficent foundation. It is a charitable foundation for the profession. So they're not engaged in the trade or the profession, but they set the standards for the profession, and they provide pensions and benefits for the people engaged in the profession. And so what Carnegie did is that he set up a pension fund for the university professors, and this organization set the standards for what was a university. They defined what was a college or a university. So they basically set up a cartel, or, if they were, we could also call it organized, I call it organized crime. But they set up this organized structure for the control of the profession of teaching in the United States in 1905, long before most people in this country had the sophistication or the knowledge to understand what was being done. You know, I am not completely unsympathetic with the average citizen who looks at land being covered, like our farmland around here, being covered with houses. They're take and they're putting in dairy farms that really are just manure ranches, for methane, for renewable energy. And but it's all confused as to who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. If you work your way to the top of the chain in terms of the environmental organizations, they don't give a damn about the environment. They're in it for the money and the control.
Right. And
And
And that's the thing, and that's crazy because we know that the Koch brothers are involved in this. Um,
absolutely, yes,
and I mean,
yeah. And a number of years ago in Idaho, they tried to get a law passed, and I was suckered into it to begin with, on property rights, to prevent any kind of planning and zoning. Property owner can do any damn thing he wants with his property. Well, in theory, that sounds like a good idea. But if an owner wants to divert a river on his property, or prevent a fisherman from walking down the river to fish, then we're looking at something entirely different. And so while I initially supported it, because I do think, if you want to paint your house purple, it'll be ugly, but you have a right to do that. I don't think that you should be allowed to build a pig farm, next to your town so that it stinks you out. The thing that the
you hit the nail on the coffin because if you look at Measure 37, is exactly what you're just articulating right now. And on top of it, these corporations, they say people, but actually it's for corporations with a profit, and that's what they called, which Zach Williams and Jake Williams are in under Clearwater through land exchange or land swap, as they call it. And if anybody takes the time to read Measurement 37, you'll understand more with respect to what is stating. Measurement 37 will articulate everything that she's just stating, and it will substantiate her findings.
Oh, you know what? Something just occurred to me. A story that I wrote not too long ago had to do with Carol Browner. And in 1993, the President's Council on Sustainable Development, which, was the beginning of the implementation of Agenda 21. Carol Browner was the administrator of the. Prior to that, she was in Florida as their natural resources person. And what she did down there with Disney is basically set a precedent for extortion. She told Disney that they could develop land, I guess probably for Disney World or something, if they donated a certain section of the land for a wetland. Well, I don't care if it was for a good purpose or not. That is extortion. And it's regulatory racketeering, because she used her regulatory authority to force them to set aside land for an unrelated purpose to their development. Okay. She in 93 or during the Clinton administration, she completely reorganized the enforcement arm of the EPA. And when you have a leader of an organization who has the moral fiber of Guido, the local crime boss, that filters down throughout the entire organization, and it takes a long, long time to return the organization to a standard of integrity. And I don't think they've done it. I don't think we've had an EPA director that's had integrity since the Clinton administration.
Now, what was her name again, Vicky?
Carol Browner.
Carol
She's
Browner.
She was a member of the Socialist International.
And what was her position at the time? Because you kind of faded out whenever you...
Administrator of the EPA.
Okay, there is a video. Vicky sent me that video and I watched it. I was literally in hysterics, and I shouldn't have been, because what she was saying was so frightening. But she looks like a thuggish Cruella de Vil, and she's sitting there literally saying, you know, these regulations, we have to wait a year, possibly two, for them to go through Congress. Well, we're not going to do that anymore. I'm going to start pushing regs. I'm going to push these regs through. So they gave themselves at that time full control on regulations to where it doesn't have to go through Congress. It doesn't have to go through any voting process. They just make up the regulations as it goes along. Am I understanding that correctly, Vicky?
You have that 100% correct.
Okay.
Yes. The only way they can be stopped is if Congress votes to stop the regulations. We basically are living under a system of tyranny, under administrative rule.
Exactly. And thanks to the media and the press, like the Oregonian, like channeling the Oregonian rhetoric, Sherry, like shows like that, we're never going to get out of this fog. So
yeah. Okay, now let me explain to you something that I just realized with the Koch brothers. The Koch brothers are in the oil business, right?
Right.
Okay, now you have an EPA that is corrupt to the core, with a precedent set for extortion. Will allow you to do business or to develop land or do whatever if you preserve land. Okay. The Koch brothers, if they, what it set up that I could see was that there was nothing that said that the extortion would have to be a piece of property that a corporation owned itself. It could be a piece of property anywhere. All the EPA would have to do is say, we want that property, like the Hammond Ranch. And they could sick any corporation on the Hammond family in order for the federal government to be able to get that property. Well, does that mean hiring arsonists? Sure. I mean, well, you know, that would be...
Does that mean hiring lap dogs like Les Zates? Scott Callister?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
I mean, this is why our founding fathers gave us a Fourth Amendment on the Bill of Rights. Search and seizures for the government, so to have limited government and to prevent tyranny like what's going on right now as we speak. I just don't know how to...
Yeah, so it makes sense to me that the Koch brothers would be under extortion, like permanent extortion, because they're in the oil business. And the whole objective of the New World Order, the new economy, is to get rid of oil, right?
Right.
So our government, these environmentalists, have waged war on the Koch brothers, and the Koch brothers are fighting back. And we're kind of like the victims that are caught in the crossfire.
That's true. That's true. And
but then, Vicky, how do you put George Soros in the mix? Because, I mean, we got to put George... I think we have to put George Soros in the mix because I think that they're both in cahoots. Yet,
Well, yeah, George Soros, he is the stock market guy, right? He's the one that broke the Bank of England, and he's a predator, financial predator, and his support comes from organizations like MoveOn.com on the internet. And he is part of the quote new economy. As a matter of fact, a number of years ago, he opened up a new foundation, and it was for the study of the new economy, to establish a new economy. Okay, because under the New World Order, their idea is that we will have an economic system that is not based on production, the building of something, the use of natural resources and building something. It will be based on um, conservation, or the only other thing that you could base it on would be something arbitrary, which means that we'd be living under essentially a communist dictatorship where they just arbitrarily set the value of wages, set the value of allocate you how many resources that you get based on what they perceive to be your contribution to society.
And that process is taking place now, it seems. And people like the Hammonds, the Bundys, and Lavoy were fighting back against that, because that's really what's happening right now.
Yeah, well, and if you look at the economy, all the jobs that are being created, the green jobs, so forth, they're really not, they're social jobs. They're really not necessary jobs. They're not, um, they're created for social purposes, but they are not productive in the traditional way that we think of economics, and production.
Right. Well, economically, I mean, it's for the government to have a government job is taking away from our taxpayers' dollars, because our taxpayers' dollars will pay your salary. So the more government workers you have, which really are not a government, and I've went over that, it just goes around because it's taken away from our taxpayers' dollars.
right. And
Right.
this is what's funny because there was an article that came out with respects to George Soros, and George Soros he got quotations, and I went back to the actual when on video to see where he made those quotes, where George Soros himself made the quotes. It was amazing. George Soros, how he 20 years ago with the Clintons was gonna go ahead and orchestrate an infiltration of judges. These are his quotes, not mine. I'm just paraphrasing. Where he was gonna go ahead and get the courthouses, the law firms, through media matters, infiltrate the whole entire system. And he actually prevailed when you think about it, because everything's coming through Anna J. Brown. Who appointed Anna J. Brown? The Clintons. So there's actually right now an article that I have that I read the whole thing from inside out, and I went back and going through YouTube videos to verify or validate that he made those comments. He made those comments clearly.
Do you
I mean,
have
there's
that
no question
video?
about it.
Can you send me that video, John?
Videos, yeah, of the New World Order, or the him the taking over the institutions.
Him taking over the institutions. That's what I'm
Yep,
interested in.
yep.
Uh-huh.
I can
The
give you that,
the
and excuse me, and at the same time owning the newspapers, okay, through Media Matters. But the most damning one is him stating how he's going to go and use the bar association. We all know the bar association. It's a corporation, not a government agency, and they create their own laws or statute. Excuse me, statutory laws, not constitutional laws, statutory laws, and you through them how he was going to basically take over the country, over America, and he's prevailed, and all that thanks to the Clintons. Uh, I mean, it's just it's amazing
well,
how far along when
he's
Bill Clinton was there, and now where we're at today.
yeah, he's feeding off the system that was set up.
In
Uh,
in 1905.
yeah, The Bar Association is a livery company. Okay, it's a livery company, and they control the profession of law. And if you follow it all the way through, I'm telling you, this livery company organizational structure.
What is a
It,
livery company? What is that?
well, that's just what they call them. But don't pay attention to the function that they serve.
Wait a minute, you went out for a second. What did you say, Vicky?
Oh, I said don't pay attention to the name. They're called livery companies in Great Britain. Pay attention to the function that they serve, their functional organization and what they do, because that's where you get the understanding of the nature of it. That you have to get that. um, So the Bar Association is a livery company under the Roman system of the cartel.
Wow. So, I mean, we could sit here and talk for hours, and we're going to have to do that to really expose it. I think a visual is important, so that's what Vicky and I have been working on how to expose and really tell about the structure, because Vicky really has it all down pat, I believe.
Right, and the Barnaky brothers also own the federal, or are one of the 12 families that, or 11 families that own the Federal Reserve. And if you look at the Federal Reserve, each if you look at your bills, they're numbered A through H, I believe. Your each letter represents the family. That's when you see A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H. It's because it represents a family, and which Federal Reserve it was coming out of. So
Really?
yes.
Wow.
So you have the American Bar Association that basically operates under statutory law, the unconstitutional laws. At the same time, we have fiat money being and the same families that actually that were also behind the funding of the American Bar Association are also behind the Federal Reserve and the IRS.
Wow. Just wow. All right. Well, I think we should end this and come back again. Because this is, I want to try to keep it at around an hour so people watch. You know what I mean? Because when it gets too long, people won't watch it. But
Okay,
anyway,
let me give my website, because there are two articles on there that I mentioned that people should read, and one of them is called Tammany Hall for All, and that describes the corrupt political machine that was built in New York that I think has been replicated throughout our country. And the last one on the Prosperity Project here in Idaho is called The Secrets of the Secret Society in Idaho.
and is that your,
Oh, my website is thetechnocratictyranny.com.
and both of them are on the technocratic tyranny?
Yes, if you click on special reports and on economic development, you get a whole list of the research that I've done on the economic development, because that really is the pathway in our government, is economic development. Okay, so make sure to put in the technocratictyranny.com.
This is Call of Duty Goddess signing off, and as always, I've got your six.